wondering just how gobsmacked Kevin Fallness will be when someone tells him, because he never listens to the show, we know that, when someone elbows him in the side and says, later tonight, did you hear Barreiro start his Wednesday program talking Minnesota Wild hockey? I wonder if you'll believe it, first of all. And secondly, will he just ignore it and or deny it? We have a lot of people regarding a lot more serious issues who on a daily basis do that. It would be funny if it weren't so sad. They decide you are X on a given issue. And no matter what you actually have said on that issue on a given day, they'll pretend you didn't say it. They'll pretend they didn't hear you say it. Or they will just conveniently ignore it because it just doesn't quite fit whatever they've decided you are, whatever sort of monster you are. That's similar to Fallness when it comes to the picture he paints regarding this program and hockey conversation. How does he sleep at night? I'm not sure, but we are starting with your Minnesota Wild and hockey. Here's what I want to know. I don't know what the official attendance was. Was it sold out as usual at the X?
Most likely.
How many people in our audience, Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line, 64686, will be honest enough to tell us that when the Blackhawks built a 3-0 lead, they were ready to leave or actually did leave? Or even if you didn't leave, how did you feel about the proceedings? Did you have any real sense that your favorite hockey team was going to come back and do what they did? I'm curious because that has to be one of the better comebacks we've had in quite some time. I think it goes back to, did I see 2023 or 24? It's the dreaded, the most challenging lead in hockey, or the most dangerous lead in hockey. Not 2 goals, as it turns out, 3. That's at least what their opponents, who do we play? The Blackhawks, Chicago Blackhawks?
Yes, sir.
And explain to me how it's possible. We're like, is it 18-0-1 in our last 19 against the Blackhawks? Is it some absurd mark like that? How is that even plausible in a league where anything can happen on any given day or weekday or weekend day? It's hockey, the goaltending variable. Whether one team is superior to the other or not, I don't know. And then there was the rousing penalty kill in OT where you said, we're doomed. I thought it was a legitimate call. I thought it was, I know they don't like making any penalty calls in OT, but I think this one had to be made. And we killed it very successfully. The wall of, what's his nickname? The Wall of St. Paul? After what might have been maybe a struggle early, stood very tall, kept us in it that way. And I thought generally we just did a very good job extending. We needed to get that game to the shootout, correct? That was the whole idea. Because you expected the Blackhawks to score. I expected the Blackhawks to score, but we refused to yield. And we end up getting the extra point as well. Maybe we'll look back on this season and say, that was one of those games. It felt like there was more at stake than just a single puck game. And by the way, will you explain to me, you're a big Connor Bedard guy, correct?
I think he's pretty good. Yeah. I'm not going to like him for the next Probably 15 years, but he's pretty good.
Rarely seen a more feeble shootout attempt than his.
Yeah.
That was troubling for a guy who's as good as he is. But bottom line is we got the thing done. A very nice victory under what we based on the deficit. Very challenging circumstances. And we find ourselves celebrating yet again. Did you give up on the club? Did you go?
I didn't.
Okay.
No, I did not give up. I've seen them do this before, and they've got the offensive firepower to do so.
Yeah.
If you look at the standings, this 1 point that they got, the extra point, the Wild are 30-14-10, Dallas 30-14-9. So the Wild are 1 point ahead of Dallas, and let's say you get the Stars in round one, which is most likely what's going to happen.
Yeah.
If you go to a game 7 and that 1 point holds up, and that's the difference between going to Dallas or having it at Grand Casino Arena.
Who's to say? You're exactly right.
You never know.
We could look back on it.
Every point's a big point. So yeah, it's he'll be really good, and I think he's a future Wild killer. But I think with the Blackhawks' generational run, maybe they made a deal with the devil that, give us these cups and these 3 back-to-back-to-back playoff victories over the Wild, and we'll let them win for the next, 5-6 years after that.
Flim Flam writes, I watched the Wild game on about a 45-minute delay, so I could fast forward through intermissions and commercials. I was just about to turn it off when down 3-0, but then accidentally saw a Russo tweet saying Wild were down 2 after 2, so I stuck with it. Thank God for spoilers. Dave from White Bear Lake. Hey, Dan, the Wild trimmed the deficit to 2-1 in the second before Chicago went up 3-1. I don't think that's true. Pretty sure we were down 3-0, then got a goal to cut it to 3-1 going into the third period, correct? We were down
correct.
3 goals.
They were down 3-0.
That's exactly it. I stayed, right, 612 guy, and believed they would come back. It's like we will get them in OT. Dan, as a card-carrying member of the Fallness Fanatics, not only do I approve of you starting with hockey, but I recommend you bring him on as a regularly paid guest. Elite content machine, Como Park garage guy. Now, you made him a surprise guest. I didn't know it was coming during the beginning of the truncated Top 5 at 5, right? Part 1. Mm-hmm. I think it worked out pretty well. I thought it was pretty solid.
The thing Fallness can't do now is move the goalposts. Because that's the...
He will. Well, that's what listeners do.
Yeah, we start with Wild today.
Yeah.
Oh, well, why didn't you do that yesterday? Well, no, but we did today.
True. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm with you on
that one.
Generally speaking, do people leave Minnesota Wild games prematurely? I don't know. I don't. Do Wild fans have better staying power than fans of other local teams? I have no idea how you would even measure that sort of thing. I'm not sure.
I mean, I was there a couple weeks ago. I can't remember who it was against, where it was pretty obvious it was like 5-1. And there were, I would say, half the lower bowl emptied out.
507 guy. At 3-0, I turned it off for the night.
Yeah.
And there were a few people who said they were about to. I mean, because look, you can even be a big-time fan and say, I only got so many hours in the day. I got a couple other things I want to do. This isn't their night. I'm not going to, call for anybody's head, but, that's it. It's just not working out very well. So I like the honesty from people saying, yeah, I did turn it off, or I almost turned it off and then decided to hang in there. So in any case, it was a very nice comeback, I would say. And as I mentioned, probably the thing I was most impressed with was the keeping them out of the scoring column during the OT for the last, couple minutes, right, of the OT. So I thought that was a very, very impressive. And I don't even think, I think Volstead had a couple of nice saves for sure. I don't think he had to do any sort of all-time saves. I thought the defense in front of him was pretty good as well. I'll admit to you, I'm a hockey purist. I go back to the days of Dougie Moans and Eric Nestorenko in Chicago, Illinois, mid-'60s. I still am not sure I'm on board. I understand why they do it, but I'm still not sure I'm on board with the OT approach. It just feels too wide open for me. I get it. That's the idea. We want to have a chance for people to score. There's times where it doesn't really feel like hockey to me. Are you okay with it? Have you come to grips with it, or did you always like it, or are you bothered by it?
I think that the idea is we want to get a winner, and so that's the best possible way to do it. But now the players have adjusted to where KFAN wants to give you a shot to win those bonus bucks in the National Cash Contest. Just head to KFAN.com. The keyword is pay this hour. Pay. KFAN.com, keyword pay.
Fan.
Bonus Bucks is back on KFAN. We have 9 chances for you to win $1,000 every weekday. It's every hour from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. 10 are keywords. Learn more at KFAN.com.
Back. Kessler in studio about, I think, 5:30 or so. He is scheduled. Lots to get caught up on there. A very active A section again today. In addition, from the toy department, Kevin Seifert is going to join us starting at the bottom of this hour. And it turns out to be a serendipitous booking. I mean, he's with us every week, but it actually turns out better that he's with us today than his usual Tuesday day, because we can get his view on the ongoing Pitchfork Nation hyperventilation over the fact that Bill Belichick did not make the Pro Football Hall of Fame on the first ballot. We had some fun with that yesterday. We're going to have some more fun, at least on my end, with it today, because what we're learning, and this is always what I'm guessing, to a certain extent, this might not matter to Seifert's 4-letter network, because they do want the controversy. They want the negativity, because on its face, it seems ludicrous that he wouldn't be first ballot Hall of Famer, correct? But what we're learning from a lot of people is that there's a procedural aspect that I still don't understand. I've read 4 accounts of procedurally how it's a little more complicated than one might think. The relatively new Hall of Fame, Football Hall of Fame voting procedure that may well have something to do with it. I believe with some people, Spygate does have something to do with it. I believe it's least likely that it's curmudgeonly reporters like myself saying, bleep you were mean to us, you weren't very cooperative with us, you mumbled through all your answers, so we're going to make you wait. Can I say it's not that. I don't know. But we've had the Pitchfork Nation is at its best at a time like this. And on very many levels, they've been very, very busy lately. But in this case, it's we want the perpetrators identified. We want them strung up. We want them rooted out of the voting system. And we might even want to tase them. Combination of all of those things. Because once the nation gets on you, man, it's and fixates on something like that, there ain't much way. There's no reasonable or nuanced way out of the box. So we'll get his view on that, and then we'll talk plenty of Vikings, certainly. There's a lot to get to with the Seifert, and if you have questions for him, hit the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line, which, as always, is 64686. You're getting ripped by Jonathan from Bloomington. Blakemore's correct that we have 1 point more than Dallas, but they have a game in hand. They can still leap us in points with that extra game. Did you not do the game in hand thing?
I'm just saying the 1 point could make the difference. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, that's true. You did. That's okay. Yeah. So you're saying he's taking you out of context a little bit?
A little. I mean, currently he is correct, but I'm just saying that's a game where you could have lost and got no points. Yes. Now you get two of them. When it's so close like it is with Minnesota and Dallas, every point counts.
612 guy. What are the Twins up to? Believe we have the most trades since last year's trade deadline until now. What was your favorite Julian moment? He's gone, right? We traded him and another player. I think we got a minor league pitcher back whose name escapes me at this moment. I don't know what we're doing, and I'd be the first to admit a lot of me doesn't want to know because I don't really think the team has earned curiosity. I mean, it's like I don't want to give them the satisfaction yet. At least it's bleeping January to figure this thing out. And I know now we got a more of a straight shooting Pohlad than we've had before, and he's a more mature Pohlad, and he's going to send a different message, and maybe all of that will be true. But we know none of it yet. Words are cheap. You can take that down if you've never heard it before. So I have no idea what exactly we're up to. We're doing a lot. We're busy. You were going to say?
Well, I was just, have you been alerted to the preposterous statement that Lavelle said yesterday with Sinekin regarding the Twins?
I don't think so.
10:18 yesterday morning, he said, quote, "If the Twins are competitive on July 1st, they will be active at the deadline."
Who said that?
Lavelle. Which is a double PST.
Repeat the sentence.
If the Twins, actually, I misspoke. If the Twins are competitive on July 1st, they will add at the deadline.
Oh, and again, what does that mean? I mean, add what? Add somebody that might really have a. You got to be. That's too. I don't want to be too literal here, but I got to have a little more detail on that. And we already had to admonish Lavelle for his column about what the Twins really need to do is make a splash. In fact, do we still have the splash sounder? See if we can find
somewhere.
This. Guardsy found it. It was a pretty good sounder. And I think we then played it into the ground. But okay. I mean, you. What does it cost you to throw that out? Right? Why should anyone necessarily believe it? And moreover, why should we applaud them if they did? That should be business as usual. That's what good businesses do whenever they're in it. It shouldn't even have to be a story. That in itself is a bit of an indictment. There it is. That's not bad.
I just think it's if the Twins are competitive on July 1st. That's the world's biggest if.
True, but they could be because I don't think the division is going to be very good. But then you're back to what are you doing with it? It's the nachos. Anytime your team is down 3-0, go buy nachos, watch the rally. 60% of the time it works. Every time. Ask Seifert about Jimmy Johnson's comments. I've not heard. Has Jimmy spoken up about the snub of Bill Belichick? We'll try to find those at some point. What area code is this? Let me see. Let me do some. Looks like 610. where's 608? Is that familiar to you?
608
That does not
is
familiar.
southwestern, south central Wisconsin.
Wisconsin,
So that's
okay.
like Janesville area.
That
My dad's
explains
part
it.
of town.
Okay, enough hyperbole describing Pitchfork Nation. I'm out. First of all, you're not out, 608 guy. God bless you. If it feels better to say you're out, say you're out, but you're not out. You're still listening. Hyperbole. The hyperbole is the absurd overreaction to the vote, as far as I'm concerned. That describes... The whole term Pitchfork Nation exists because it's real. Because it sadly has become the norm for too many people, no matter what the issue happens to be. So, no, we'll stick with it. It came about very organically. It's called reacting to the real world and the level of hyperventilation. Not just that, because I can hyperventilate with the best of them. It's more the bad things that have to happen to the person who is involved in whatever the transgression is. I mean, that's the Pitchforkian part of it. That's where we've lost our minds. And so, no, it will absolutely be a part of this show. So if that means you're out, you're out. But I don't even believe that you actually are. Kevin Seifert, we think, is in. He's going to join us. We got some other questions coming in for him. They can be also some Vikings questions. There could be some National Football League on the field questions. There could be some Sam Darnold leftover questions. Whatever's on your mind. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line wide open 64686. Back with Seifert. Kessler will join in studio about 2 hours from now.
The one and only Monster Jam rolls back into U.S. Bank Stadium February 7th and 8th. We've got your shot at tickets in. Check out the contest page, KFAN.com, keyword contest, so you could win a family 4-pack of tickets to the February 7th show, KFAN.com, keyword contest.
This is interesting. I think, Seifert, we've got folks out there who want to get beyond the cardboard Seifert, the football reporter Seifert.
Oh, boy.
They want a little bit more. They want to learn a little bit more about you. For example, writes, where did it go? Oh, my God. They're coming in so fast. Let's see. They're coming in fast and furious.
There's not much
This is
to tell.
from Dave in, is it Illinois? Let's see. Yeah, Dave in Illinois, somewhere. That's very vague. Illinois.
Big state.
Big state. Let's just get to know Seifert. Favorite food? Favorite movie? Favorite series? TV, Netflix guy, Hulu guy, etc. So maybe it is time we confirm that you are multidimensional, that you're not just eat, sleep, drink, report football all the time.
I would like to think so. I don't know if anybody, I don't know how it would compare to anybody else, but I like a good sci-fi show on Apple TV.
Okay.
I think that's where most of the shows that I end up watching are on. Just started at Hijack on. It's not really sci-fi, but it's
Yes,
it's a good Apple.
I can see the actor's name. I always forget it.
Ideas.
Elba?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the second year of
the second season. So I get into all of that. A lot of people think that I do impressions.
Yes, I do.
I can neither confirm nor deny that, but I do like to occasionally joke around. So maybe I do. And I'm just kind of boring. I think.
Favorite food?
What's
the favorite Seifert go-to dinner? And it can be boring. It doesn't have to be fancy.
There's very few foods that I dislike.
Okay.
So what makes me happy is what makes the people around me happy.
That's
and the
very
family.
selfless
and so
of you.
That's all I do is give.
Yeah,
it's really
like
been my central focus since the day I was born. But my family has my immediate family has some picky eaters, and so when we can find something that all four of us are willing to eat, that's my favorite food for that
In your
day.
younger days when you were on your own, was Kevin Seifert ever a boil bag guy? By boil bag, I mean, because I used to live on them. They would be Stofers. They're bad, there's enough sodium in one of them to last 3 days, but when you're young, you don't care. And so for me, it'd be a boil bag, a Stouffer's boil bag. You'd boil the water, then you'd put the pouch. There'd be, for example, the Stouffer's Swedish meatballs. There'd be 2 pouches. There'd be a pouch for the meatballs, and there'd also be a pouch for the noodles. And I lived on that stuff. They had 2 or 3 of them that were delicious because I couldn't cook at all, and that's what I ate, a bunch of boil bags.
No, I don't know if I ever had any of that, but what I remember is from Stouffer's especially is they had, maybe they still do, they had this French bread pizza.
They did, you're right, they might still.
And I used to go to town on those as a teenager and maybe even younger. You'd put them in they initially you'd put them in the toaster oven. I don't know if anybody has toaster ovens anymore. But then they eventually figured out a way where they would package it in this cardboard that had some kind of reflective interior that was safe to put in the microwave. I was around when microwaves first came out, and there was a lot of experimentation about what was safe to put in a microwave.
Correct.
And, maybe some interest in finding out what would happen when you put things into a microwave that you're not supposed to. And so that was always, that was an interesting time. But, the Stouffer's, you eventually could make the Stouffer's French bread pizza in the microwave, which was an all-time convenience hack.
Here's the dangerous thing about the boil bag concept. So you like I said, you can heat up from the faucet the water. So you're a little ahead of the game because the idea is to get the water to boil, and then the food boils in it from the frozen Stouffer's thing, like Swedish meatballs. But if you start the process, get the water heated up, put the heat on high, wait for the boiling, and then you drop the 2 items in there.
You're getting burned.
No, well, you could if you splash it too much. But the other hazard is if you then lay down on the couch and doze off long enough that all of the water evaporates, and now you got a fire in the pot. That did happen to me once, where I had to. I woke up smelling something. Fortunately for me, it had not escaped beyond the pot, but all the water was gone.
Oh.
And it obviously got too hot, and ended up all being in flames.
That wasn't just a nap. That was sleeping.
Nap is the wrong word.
You went to bed.
Yeah,
you went to bed with the water boiling.
Yeah. Favorite movie? Does Seifert have a favorite motion picture or pictures?
I should keep with my public theme of always praising Weird Al Yankovic. One of the most underrated funny movies of all time was UHF.
He'll be appearing. That is actually a pretty funny movie. Great Minnesota Get Together. He's coming.
Yeah, it's too bad I can't make it.
And you're gonna. That's the ultimate test. So you're gonna flunk the test.
It really was. I got on the mailing list for tickets whenever it came out, and I had a decision to make. I had to decide what was more important to me. And as much as I like him, and I did go to see him last summer at I think it was at Treasure Island, and so it's not as if I haven't seen his recent show, but it was just a bridge too far, Dan.
I'm stunned, actually.
There's a time when everyone
you're so stubborn about that issue.
No, there's a time when everyone has to make their stand.
How about Bonnie Raitt? That's the first concert, Great Minnesota Get Together this year. The great mythic. She can sing in 100 different genres. Blues, pop, whatever you want. Bonnie Raitt's terrific. You should go see Bonnie Raitt at the State Fair, first night.
Yeah, no. If she's going to be at First Avenue or something, I'll go to that.
Okay.
I don't know if that's where she'll end up being, but it was, there comes a time when everyone has to take a stand, and I took mine.
How do you feel about bratwurst risotto?
Have you
ever had that?
I've certainly heard it talked about a lot. I'm not certain it actually exists, but if there ever becomes a time when I'm trying to root around for something new to try, I will definitely prepare that.
All right. I mentioned if you have Vikings questions, National Football League questions, pass them along. Several of you have already. Well, let me start with the Vikings question. We're going to get to the Hall of Fame controversy for sure, because I'm going to need your help explaining some of the procedural aspects that I do think are part of the story, whether they should be or not. Bears and Patriots Now, the Bears, of course, had a good run this season. Eliminated, but a good run. Patriots on their way to the Super Bowl. Bottomed out and rebuilt properly for the future while the Vikings continue to try this competitive rebuild nonsense. Any regrets from the Brain Wizards over there?
I don't think so, because I mean, if to me the Brain Wizards are the head coach and the GM, like that's the marching orders of the franchise, and I actually think it's a really interesting conversation.
And that's ownership you're talking about?
Yeah, ownership. Yeah, like that was not breaking down the roster and rebuilding it in sort of the classic sense was not an option for those people, for the people who are running the Vikings, because the Vikings owners don't believe in doing that. And the conversation is, what would, in the larger sense, since 2022, the Vikings, I don't have it off the top of my head, but they have, I think, the 5th best regular season record. They've had, a lot of regular season wins.
Yes.
The Bears were maybe in the lowest, the bottom 5 of regular season records from 2022 to 2024,
yep.
and no playoff appearances. The Vikings had 2 playoff appearances over that time, and then this year the Bears had a great season, and the Vikings missed the playoffs by a game. And so the question is, because we don't know what direction either one of them are going in the future, like what of these past 4 years, which one would you rather have? And so I know you're a Bears fan, and
you can't. In other words, you're saying you can't just evaluate it on the basis of the most recent season.
Yeah, like the Bears. If you're a Bears fan, you went through 3 really rough seasons to get to this year.
Well, more than 3.
Well, I mean, at least starting when the GM tenures and lined up, and then you get to this point, and clearly the Bears at the moment look like they're in a pretty good spot, and the Vikings have a lot of really tough decisions to make this offseason about trying in terms of how quickly they can get back to that spot. But it's kind of a question for fandom, like what's a better experience over that, at least that 3-year period from 22 to 24 to get to the point where each of the teams are at in 2025. And I think that's a kind of a nuanced conversation that's not as easy as saying, well, the Bears put in the time to do it the right way, and they're here now, and the Vikings tried to finesse it, and they're here, and then they're here at this point now. And so, I don't know if it's an easy answer to decide, and we could look back in 10 years and see where the programs each went from this point. But up until this point, I'm not certain that the Bears did it the right way and the Vikings did it the wrong way, or the Vikings tried to chicken out or finesse in some way that the Bears avoided and just sort of sacrificed a couple years to get to where they are.
Well, yeah, I'm not even sure that he meant it as pejoratively as I described it. It's just a part of it, I think, is it's that age-old question about whether you end up being victimized by your own success to a certain extent because you never get bad enough to really give yourself it takes longer then, but maybe get to a place where you now feel like, all right, we're in position to be a factor for a number of years in a row. Yeah,
and there's no doubt that if you look back in history and you say, you look at the Indianapolis Colts, who were terrible, and then the next year they got Peyton Manning, and that changed the direction of their franchise. Or if you look at, I want to say the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, but he was a number 12 pick. He was available to everybody, but they got a generational player by moving up to the number 12. And so there's different in other sports as well. In San Antonio with Wemby, and like if you don't necessarily, even if you're not trying to be bad, you get rewarded sometimes, or you luck into it sometimes, and you have franchise changing moments. It doesn't mean you can't have a franchise changing moment independent of how well you did the year before. I mean, you don't, the chances of getting a franchise changing player decrease a certain amount with each draft pick that you get lower with, but it doesn't rule it out entirely. And so there's definitely been teams that have been rewarded for being really incompetent and losing over a longer period of time, and eventually they get somebody that can lead them out of that spot. But there's also other ways to do it as well. And so I think at the very least, they haven't optimized their chances for getting franchise changing players in the draft, but it doesn't mean that they couldn't have or couldn't moving forward.
We'll all agree, at least in theory, and maybe in reality, that Bill Belichick is worthy of first ballot entry into the Professional Football Hall of Fame.
Yes, sir.
It leaked. The story leaked yesterday that he didn't make it. I already had some fun with it yesterday because I actually think, put it this way, I don't know what I would do if I had a vote. My guess is I would probably vote for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there are some mitigating factors that some people in our business are conveniently forgetting way back when they were singing a very different tune. But I'll get to that part in a minute. The procedural part of it, I didn't even understand until I started reading. And even after I tried to read some of these clarifications and explanations, I'm still not sure I understand, because there is some belief that might have, as much as nobody wants to hear it because it's boring and it doesn't allow you to shake your fist and lose your mind, there are some procedural aspects to some changes in the way they do Pro Football Hall of Fame voting that at least need to be acknowledged, correct, and perhaps even explained.
Yeah, I mean, a few years ago, and I think Deion Sanders was somebody who was leading this charge. There was a sense that the Pro Football Hall of Fame was not exclusive enough anymore. There were too many people getting in each year, and not all of them were the absolute best of the best. And again, you can debate all of that, but there was the number of people that were getting in over that period was definitely more. And so they changed the process. And in the case of Belichick, the way it impacted it is it put him into a category with coaches, contributors, and seniors. And so there were 5 people in that group that the voters were allowed to vote for up to 3. Zero sum, no ranking, no nothing. It was Bill Belichick, Bob Kraft, Roger Craig, was it Kurt? What was the Anderson who was the Bengals quarterback? Kenny Anderson, and L.C. Greenwood.
Right.
And so those were the seniors guys. And so what happens sometimes in those situations is those names can rotate over time. And so if there's somebody that you as a voter think should be in the Hall of Fame and he comes up, or multiple people that you think should be in the Hall of Fame and they come up, and sometimes you're tempted to make sure you vote for them right then, even though there's somebody like Bill Belichick who might be more qualified, objectively, because he's going to be on the ballot every year. You don't have to worry about him not getting the requisite amount of time. And so we don't know if that's what happened, but that's the type of things that happen. And so you clearly, less than 40 people of the 50 voters included Bill Belichick in their among the 3 in that group that they could vote for. And I guess that's sort of the simplest way to do it, to say it. And so, my friend Mike Sando, who was at ESPN for a long time, and he's been doing a great job of trying to provide some action.
I agree.
And the way he's put it is that certainly can happen, and he understands how that might happen. In his mind, you just look at the list and you say, who are the 3 best, and you vote for them. And if somebody who's of lesser quality gets on the wayside, then that's okay. It's terrible for that person, but it's okay in the larger sense of you're trying to just get the best guys in each year, and don't overcomplicate it. And so that's an example of how a process that may not be perfect can increase the chances of a oversight of this level. And it could have been that some of those people who voted for somebody other than Belichick it wasn't an anti-Belichick vote. It was an assumption that everybody else was probably going to vote for him. And so you only need 40 of the 50, and nobody cares if you get all 50 or not, as long as it's over 40. And so maybe they thought they could finagle some other people, or their particular guy that they thought could get in. And so it gets into some strategy that maybe if it were more of a straightforward process, you wouldn't have. But I think there's also a lot of pressure, and understandably so, to make sure that this continues to be an exclusive group and that you're not opening up the process into ways that have classes of the Hall of Very Good, and that was where they were a couple years ago. And I think they must have taken it to heart.
That's what prompted the change.
Yeah,
right?
and they must have taken it to heart because they made it a lot harder for people to. And the other process thing they changed is they reduced the waiting time for coaches from 5 years to 1 year. And so there's still, Bill Belichick's still coaching in college, but he's still coaching, and there's still some. If there are any personal grudges or emotions involved over a 5-year period, that will probably dissipate. I'm not saying that that's a justified reason to not vote for someone, but it's, as Sid always said, people are human. And so human nature sometimes takes over. And so that the 5-year gap, while I understand why they would reduce it for coaches who might be of age, and you want to make sure they get in while they're still around. But it can also increase the chances that a personal grudge or a campaign of some kind based on something other than their performance on the field could affect that.
I think this is a story that it was like a 4-byline story. As a coach, Belichick was grouped with one contributor finalist, who this year is Patriots owner Robert Kraft, and 3 senior finalists, players who have been eligible for more than 20 years. You mentioned them. Anderson, the former QB, Roger Craig, who had a minute here, and L.C. Greenwood. Among that group of 5, each of the 50 selectors was asked to vote for 3.
Right.
It seems counterintuitive to go about doing it this way. I understand why they made the change, but it does
3. Yeah,
up to 3. Yeah, I guess up to 3. It adds to it. Now, here's the part that I honestly, and maybe I'm giving the Jackals too much credit here, because I don't believe, despite the sometimes often testy relationship that existed between most of the Jackals and Belichick, I don't believe that that's at the top of the list at all of possibilities. I just don't.
No.
Because I think even those folks would say, yeah, he was Jackassian, but that's too good a resume. I might be able to finesse that in my own brain if he's more borderline, but he ain't borderline. So to me, well, go ahead.
I'll say, and to the extent that he did act that way, it was often to sort of the local media in New England who aren't voters. He actually has the people in the 50 voters are guys from men and women from all around the country, and he actually is extremely interactive with them because he's got this
Gary Myers has told us that. Yeah,
this thing, and Gary would know more than me, but he's very in tune with NFL history and the Hall of Fame, and he's gone to great lengths, from what I understand, to help some people get into the Hall of Fame. So he just has I think he has a better relationship than people would realize with the actual voters.
That's a fair point. I do think that it is harder to grapple with, well, I think Spygate, we would agree, is bigger than Deflategate, if I'm ranking them.
Yeah.
So what's odd to me is I can remember back to that whole period. And again, it wasn't unanimous, but there were a lot of people in our business who said, well, no, this is a big deal, and this isn't a good look, and there's got to be some way to hold them accountable. Now, maybe I don't know that that's some of the same people who are voting, but I don't think it strains credulity to think, all right, this is one of the places where I know he's going to get in, but for me, in my good conscience, as absurd as it sounds based on his resume, I do want to make this point because I don't want this to happen so easily for him that we forget what took place then. Now, you told me Jimmy Johnson mocked the whole thing, said what Belichick got in trouble for, everybody was doing. But the fact is, the team lost a number 1 pick, as I recall it. He got fined a bunch. How much didn't the team get fined? Like $500,000?
Yeah,
it was a huge amount. So why is that outrageous that might have entered into it? I just think, I again don't know if I would have done it. But I'm not going to take somebody else's right away from feeling this is how I'm going to make whatever point I want to make.
Yeah, I mean, that's the right of the voters. You could argue, in what way did Spygate, if you want to performatively punish him for it, for sure, but in what way did Spygate, attempting to tape people's signals as opposed to just trying to manually watch them, because that's what everybody was doing, was manually sitting in the press box and
Yes.
watching it in real time. And
The distinction was the taping.
yes,
Right.
and
The video link.
is my understanding and recollection. And so, whatever his resume is, to what extent was it burnished by, or made better by the fact that they were taping people or not? And I don't know that anybody could come up with a substantive answer to how Bill Belichick wouldn't have been as good as he was were it not for Spygate. If the idea is like that he flouted, NFL
Yes.
rules, continuously, then okay, come up with some more stuff. The Deflategate thing is, that was really pinned on Tom Brady.
True.
The only way that Belichick was involved in it is that he was in charge of the football operation. And so, you compare it to baseball, and there's people keeping, some of the quote unquote steroid guys
Yes, exactly.
out of the Hall of Fame, because it is their impression that those players would not have performed at the level that they did were it not for substance abuse.
Yes.
And I don't have enough expertise to go down that road too far, but I know that that's the crux of their argument. You can certainly disagree with the
Absolutely.
people who are doing that, but I think that's has a little bit more substance, backing it, than to say we're gonna, he was, we're gonna be the gatekeepers of the morality of the game, and because he was fined by the NFL and lost a draft pick for doing something, taking something one step too far, in trying to get an edge, that somehow diminished the performance of his entire career.
I would say he deliberately flouted the rules. The rules allegedly exist for a reason. I know there were other teams that were unhappy about it. Now that's been dismissed by somebody. That's just envy and jealousy. But again, it's very difficult to prove how many games it added, if any.
Yeah.
But you don't do it unless you think you're gaining something from it. So therefore, I'll say again, for the fifth time, I'm not sure. I still wouldn't have voted for him immediately if I was on that committee or I had a vote.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's as outrageous as some people in our business are making it sound if you decide to go some other direction in that regard. I think this is like with any voting. People have lost their minds. Same with the bond stuff. I think reasonable minds can disagree on that, but what bothers me is we have people in our business who say, no. Not only do those individuals need to be identified, they need to be outed. We might need to add more voters. We're in charge of them. And that to me is not how real world works when it comes to vote. It's your vote. You can do with it what you want.
Yeah. And to be fair, nobody has come forward publicly and said that's why they didn't vote for him.
Yeah.
And maybe that's too idealistic to think. There's been reporting that was brought up in the room.
Right.
But, whether somebody just, they have debate, they have talk, sometimes
It should come up in the room.
Yeah.
At least in the
Absolutely.
deliberations, I think.
And sometimes you bring up an objection and somebody says,
Sure.
and this is probably more about like X's and O's, but like somebody brings up an objection to this person's resume, and somebody says, well, don't forget about this and that, and okay. And
right.
so that's a normal thing. And so to report that it came up in the conversation, like I can't say one way or the other whether somebody in the room just 100% didn't vote for the sole reason that they believe Bill Belichick's resume is burnished by cheating. But we don't have anybody actually saying that yet.
No, and I would say again, in this climate, it ain't exactly easy to raise your hand and say, "Yeah, I didn't vote for him."
Yeah,
because we have, like I said, these Puritans, these gatekeepers who've decided they know what's best, not just for themselves, but for everybody else when it comes to the vote. You're going to get that individual, I don't even know if it's a matter of a lack of courage to come forward. I think now I'm just going to get obliterated.
Yeah.
That's not exactly, I think, fostering a climate of, okay, go ahead and let us know one way or the other. And we can still say we think you're wrong-headed. We think that the resume itself is such first ballot-y material that this is silly, but okay, it's your vote.
And the reason, and people you might argue with this, but I think that the reason that these votes are kept they're supposed to be kept secret in terms of the individuals is so that you can vote without having to think about the retribution you might face, and it sounds silly because we're talking about sports, but like the retribution you might face, or the criticism you might face, or the opportunities that could be taken away from you, I guess, if you didn't vote in the way that the masses wanted you to vote. And you could flip it and I guess say, like, if you're it also gives you the right to carry out, or the ability to carry out a grudge without any accountability. I get that too. But I think if, and these guys voted, and these men and women voted, under the understanding that these votes would remain secret. So moving forward, if you want to change the process and say, like, your votes are going to get out, so keep that in mind. I think then that would be fair, because if anybody didn't like that, they could resign or leave. And like it's a little bit tough to retroactively demand this level of transparency when the process promised a certain level of privacy for particular reasons.
Top of the hour break. Kevin Seifert in studio for the between 3:30 and the bottom of this hour. Kessler is scheduled to join at about 5:30 tonight. Keep the texts coming. We'll continue on this subject and then get into some other National Football League / Vikings related items as well when we continue.